to Coffee with CiCi. I am your host, CiCi, a first-generation immigrant chasing the American dreams. And then this will be our fifth episode. And then first of all, a thank you to all our listeners for your participation, subscribing, commenting, and sharing your wonderful thoughts, thumbs ups, and beautiful hearts. It truly shows our guests that you are right here with us. And so together we can grow faster and greater. As you know, that's each episode that we dive into personal experiences, personal growth, and challenges, and those trophy moments that make life so fascinating. So by sharing these stories, we hope to inspire and empower each other to navigate our own journeys with more confidence and resilience. As you might notice that we have listeners from 30 countries worldwide, and I realize that many of us aspire to become a confident and natural sounding communicators, right? So as you know that I am a lifelong student, and one of the main reasons of this podcast is to capture my personal growth and share with our listeners. So I noticed that my pronunciation and the language skills are not perfect, and there's a plenty of room for me to improve. So therefore, that's I was thinking that what if we have an American speech pathologist share some tips, right? Or philosophy and her success journey on how she overcame and her learning curve with us. Wouldn't that be inspire us to boost our confidence and speed up of our learning journey? Right? So therefore, that's to fulfill that goal. That's we are so honored to have the perfect speaker with us today, and she is a remarkable coach in an American speech pathologist and the founder of a Be and the Stud. So she believes your voices matters and your accent doesn't have to hold you back. She's my friend, and she's always positive, grateful, and full of gratitude. And she's an American speech pathologist who empowers and non-native English speakers and inexperienced communicators to become a confident, clear, and memorable communicators. So whether I mean it's leading for meetings, pitching ideas, or everyday conversations. So she specializing in helping advanced English learners master intonations, pronunciations, and the natural rhythm of American speech. So she's using expert techniques and approachable coaching styles. So she helps students break language barriers and build voices that resonate. So she has been helped hundreds of students worldwide, and seeing practical result fuels her passion. And so in her spare time, like she enjoys sipping coffees, exploring the skis, and she's also a private pilot. So please help me to welcome my friend Linda Nielsen.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. Thank you so much, CiCi. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Yes, I went skiing this morning with my husband. Uh,
Wonderful.
yes, just at a local mountain, but I got some exercise in, and I know your podcast is also about wellness, and we as senior or mature adults, we're married 44 years, so I can give you an idea of my age. We go out there and we just stay active to lead our best lives. So thank you for having me here, and I'm very excited to help your audience and answer some questions for you.
Oh, thank you, Linda, for sharing your time on a Saturday afternoon. This is so gracious, and we are blessed. And Linda, that's I always fascinating have about you and your story. So I remember when we first met over that unblinded virtual conference. Remember? And you mentioned that returning to the school in your 40s and learn and earn your master's degree in speech language pathology. Is that right?
That is correct, CiCi. Yes. I had gotten a bachelor's degree right after high school, and I was thinking about becoming a speech language pathologist, but at the time, you had to get your master's degree to practice. And my father had gotten run over by a truck and
Oh,
fractured his leg terribly. And I just couldn't see as a 22-year-old how I was going to afford or go forward with my master's. So I kind of deferred my dream. I pushed my dream down the road to be a speech language pathologist and was able to go back to school in my 40s when I had my children were at the time 10 and 14. It was a 3-year program for me because I still had to get some undergraduate courses and then do my 2 years of master's courses, master's level courses. And I've been in the field for 20 plus years now and working with international students all over the world and helping people change their lives one person at a time.
that was astonishing to me. Uh, Thank you for sharing that. And another wonderful fact that I've learned about you and from that meeting, you also mentioned that you took a pilot training at age of 57, and now you become a qualified private pilot,
Yes.
right?
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh,
That's
wow.
totally another. That's a legacy for me.
Yes, CC, I always challenge myself. I have a personal opinion, my husband as well. We just keep challenging ourselves to grow. And in what ways did I want to grow? And I all of a sudden started thinking I wanted to become a private pilot. And it wasn't a lifelong dream. It wasn't like, so since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pilot. I was actually had the good fortune to be in Alaska, and we were in one of the seaplanes flying to go fishing, actually.
Right.
So we were very, very lucky to have that opportunity. And as I was sitting in the plane, I was looking at the beauty and the nature around me, and I thought, gosh, I would love to have this beautiful talent to fly a plane. So yes, it was at the age of 57 that I acquired my private pilot license. It took me about 3 years to study for it, and it was a very difficult challenge. So for those of you who are facing challenges, let me tell you that becoming a private pilot, oh my gosh, I had to go back to like ninth grade math, and at 57 years old, because I had to
Right.
relearn the physics of
Right.
flying and it took so much tenacity. And think about getting up there and practicing and practicing and practicing. And one day my flight instructor made me do like these takeoffs and landings like 21 times. And I was like, oh my gosh, how much more
Oh,
perfect can it be? And
exactly.
he just wanted it to be perfect. And the 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 tenacity, if you understand that, it's the commitment to doing that actually affects everything I do. It affects me now in my entire life. I opened the podcast with we went skiing today. I had two artificial knees put um, in New York City in 2019. So with two artificial knees, I rehabbed and I ski and I have a wonderful time. And I have a son in Utah, and in a few weeks we're going out to Utah to do some skiing as well. So at the age that some people retire and sit back, I just keep pushing ahead. And I believe that your audience are probably growth minded as well. So yes, that's what keeps me young.
Wow, that's a fantastic. Linda, I'm just curious that it seems like a age it doesn't stop you or doesn't make any impact on you. Is that right?
That's right, CiCi. I don't think of my age. I just keep working and trying to make a difference, and I know I am, but I keep pushing forward because my mission, vision, and purpose is to help all people communicate with confidence. And as you said earlier, be understood, but also be memorable, be unforgettable. And it doesn't mean that you have to talk perfect English or, sound like me. No, 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 no. You just have to be understood. And that's why I named my company Be Understood.
Oh, that's so profound. And so Linda, we are curious that um you could have so many career choices, right? Then why did you choose a speech language pathology? Why is that so crucial to you?
I think communication is everything, CiCi. It really affects every part of everyone's life. So you could become a tax accountant. You still need to know how to communicate. You could become a nurse. Need to know how to communicate. Communication is in every part of our lives. And I just felt a calling to be a speech language pathologist. Now, remember, I had to defer my dream because I couldn't afford to go to school right after I graduated from college to get my master's degree. And it took me until my boys were, like I said, 10 and 14, and they are now 35 and 39 years old. So I really have worked hard at everything, and I've taken an unusual path.
And Linda, if say that time travels, right? If we travel back to the high school, then how would your friends or your classmates describe Linda?
That's a good question. I've always been a very compassionate person, and I worked with uh, disabled or people that had physical or cognitive disabilities. And I was just attracted to that. There's a story that goes back to when I was 5 years old. There was a woman that lived next door to my grandmother's house in Brooklyn, New York, and
Right.
she was a grown woman with Down syndrome. And at 5 years old, I would run over to play with her. What caused me to want to play with a grown Down syndrome woman? I don't know. I've always been wanting to help people. So I think I had to narrow it down. I didn't become a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. I chose communication, but I've always had that little knack of being a warm-hearted person, and this just fit into my personality. So I don't know what caused me to be that kind of person, but my parents always were like, you are going to work with, the disabled population. We just know it. And I didn't want to become a special ed teacher. And so here I am.
And just you mentioned that you're in this space for about like 20 26 years, right? And then so I wonder this, how many students or how many people have you already helped and then have this positive impact?
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't always working with international non-native English speakers. At first, I worked with deaf and hard of hearing children. And because I just thought, oh, what a gift it would be to help them communicate. So see, this drive has always been there. When I started Be Understood, we just realized we had a lot of international friends and family. We helped a family from Kosovo, and this is not a political thing. They were refugees. They came to America, didn't know any English, and we helped them become citizens. And so I worked with Albanian and Russian speaking Kosovars. Okay, I've been to Kosovo for a wedding. We've traveled internationally extensively. My son had married a girl from China. My trainer lives in New York. We do it on video. We train on video because I actually live in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's north of New York City by about 2 hours, I would say. And he is from Moldova and speaks Romanian, Russian, etc., and has a quite heavy accent. And we communicate all the time. And it was my friends that said, Linda, why don't you help non-native English speakers. It was also that my husband had just been to an electronics conference, a very big one in the United States, and there was a brilliant Indian speaker.
Got you.
He was really hard for my husband to understand. And my husband said, just think if the communication gap was a little less, how much more everybody could learn from each other.
Ah, exactly.
Yes. So I don't talk about perfection, as you know, at all. I don't look for perfection. We look for progress and we look for being understood. So if you're understood,
Right.
no matter how you speak, that's great. But I do have tips depending on what native language someone comes with on how they could bring their communication level up. And that's why I say embrace your accent, and don't lose your cultural identity, but just think about communication and avoiding miscommunications is a big key.
That is so beautiful. And Linda, that's what is a fun fact about you that you haven't revealed on other platforms?
Well, a fun fact, and depending on the countries people are joining from, is I played on a women's ice hockey team in college. And my
Oh,
husband played on the men's ice hockey team. And we met at an ice hockey rink. And we got engaged in college and got married about a year after college. So
oh,
I married my college sweetheart, but it was through ice hockey. And at that time, women didn't play a lot of ice hockey. Now
right.
you see it in the Olympics now, but back then women didn't play ice hockey. So again, it just goes to show you how I always have challenged myself and taken the path not always taken by others.
Right. Like what we usually say is like the trailblazers. The trailblazers. Is that
Perfect.
right?
Yes, that is a perfect word. Or the road less traveled. You
Right.
It's just I have my own path in life and it's culminating in this I think legacy at some point. Today I sent my children pictures of dad and I skiing and they both sent me, a heart emoji. So yes, we just keep working and getting better and harder. I lift weights twice a week with my trainer from Moldova but in New York City. So yes.
Beautiful. And we noticed that Linda, that you always like have this natural and clear and confidence delivers, right? And I mean, unblinded, a lot of us, we admire you for that part. And so we're just curious that were you always like this? Were you born like this? Or that's you overcome a learning curve yourself?
Yeah. I have to say it probably came a little naturally to me, CiCi, honestly. Other people they say they were born shy and had to, become more confident. I was always a friendly little girl. So, always talked a lot and was very comfortable talking a lot. And even in my first corporate jobs before I had gone back to school, was getting promotions and speaking, in front of groups of people. And just I'm fairly comfortable with that.
Mm.
So I don't think it was a hurdle I had to overcome. These other things like learning how to fly a plane and learning the physics behind it, yeah, that was a hurdle I had to overcome.
So this is a more like a natural talent. Is that
Yeah.
it's gifted? Is that right?
I, I
Gifted.
humbly I would say yes. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, and beautiful. So then, previously that you mentioned a couple of like philosophies about your business, like be understood, right? And especially, so say the philosophy of celebrating your accent, and learn how to use it, to your advantage in any settings, right? And your voices matters, and your accent doesn't have to hold you back. um can you give us a little bit more insights, like what inspired you to have such a profound philosophy?
Yes. Well, I didn't want to change people's hearts. I didn't want to change people's cultures, but I did want them to see that they could meet in the middle a little so that both people could communicate and understand each other better. So let me, if I might have a moment to explain that my company focuses on intonation, not pronunciation. Let me say that again. Intonation, which is the melody of a language, versus pronunciation. That's really important because there are many studies, but there's this one study from Germany that they had a hospital full of babies, and when the babies would cry, they would send in, now remember, they were German babies. So they would send in German speakers or non-German speakers. And the babies would calm down when they heard the German speakers. Now, what that means is that when the baby was still in the mother's womb, they were hearing not words, not understanding words, but the pattern of the German speech. Okay,
Wow.
so I know it's a great study to show why, if you learn the American intonation, the melody of our language, the starting at our optimal pitch, we have a pitch rise, and then we walk down a set of stairs. If you take your words, even mispronounced words, and you put them in this staircase method or the intonation of American English, that makes the biggest difference in you being understood because the American ears are used to hearing that pattern of speech. So when a non-native English speaker, an international speaker, start speaking, but using the American staircase, as I call it, and
Right.
others call it that too, they are almost instantly understood better than if they spoke in the melody of their native language. So if you were teaching me Mandarin,
Right.
speak Mandarin with an English accent. And it
Right.
might be kind of funny and hard to understand. So if I spoke though in the melody of Mandarin speakers, which
Right.
a little bit less up and down, less variations in pitch and tone, even though it's a tonal language, I understand that. Um, that person will be better understood. So my philosophy goes with intonation first. So if you go with all these pronunciation drills, mm, you know what? It might not be the best use of your time. If you go with the intonation and then work with someone who knows what they're doing, like, I'm saying there's other people that know what they're doing as well. I'm not the only person on this earth, but that just picks out a few sounds
Right.
that are that are not native to your first language and kind of tweak those sounds a little bit if they're used a lot in American English. So you need intonation and maybe tweaking a few sounds, and then you're understood. It really is a simple formula.
And Linda, can you give us a little bit of just a hint that say that's from your perspective that if you give like top three or top five the commonly used sound or melody, what would
Yes.
that be?
Okay. So if I was talking to a speaker of one of the many Indian languages,
Right.
they have a very up and down flow, beautiful flow to their speech. And because they have what's called a syllable timed language, so every other syllable is up and down. I want to go to the store with you today. Like
Right.
very beautiful and melodic. American English is a stress timed language. So it would be, I want to go to the store with you. I want to go to the store with you. Okay, not I want to go to the store with you today, right?
Got you.
You hear the difference there?
Right. Yeah.
So what I do,
Exactly.
I look at and a Mandarin speaker.
Mm,
Now, this is not you. You have a wide pitch variation, but many Mandarin English speakers speak with a very monotone pitch. So if I say, I love my new job, right? You can
Right.
hear pitch variations, especially if you have a musical background. I
Exactly.
love my new job, right?
Right.
A Mandarin speaker might say, I love my new job. I love
Exactly.
my job.
That's right. That's right.
And it's a very narrow pitch in sounds. They're not using the pitch voice variations. So it's a lot about that intonation again, the melody of the language. So that was an example for, oh, and my to any of your Indian speakers that are watching possibly. The one thing is the stress, where to stress the word, not just the stress in the sentence. And I have a perfect one. The word develop, develop. And I work with a lot of IT people in Tamil, India, for instance, right?
Right.
And they would say develop, develop, not
That resonate.
develop.
Mm.
They would say develop, develop. They would go up. Well, some words you can understand if the stress is in the wrong place. But the first time I had an Indian speaker say develop, I was like, what did you say?
Right.
And we had a very good rapport. So
Right.
I said, Rupak, I don't understand you. And he said it again, develop. And then I said, please spell that for me. That's another thing. Here's another tip. Ask for clarification. Okay.
Right.
That's an absolute tip for any language learners. And so he said develop. I'm like, oh, develop, develop. You have to have a pitch rise and then like on the second syllable, develop, develop, and or
Oh,
development,
development.
right? Do you see
Right.
the difference?
Right.
So someone is here online practicing pronunciation on YouTube, for instance, and there are some great teachers, but if they're not getting feedback, they could be practicing it wrong. Okay, so I think that if anybody's looking for a program, they should look for a program that includes feedback because there's some really great speakers out there. But if you're not getting the feedback, you could keep saying develop, develop, and not hearing the difference. So one tip I said was, use a variation of intonation. And if you wanted to focus on American English, then learn that pattern of intonation, which is optimum pitch, up, walk down a set of stairs. If you were working on a different language, if a German speaker was learning French, learn the French intonation. I mean, it works across all languages. Then identify a few sounds that maybe are really difficult for you. So for some Mandarin speakers, and it actually depends on what part of China someone is from, but they have problems with an R and an L. Others have a problem differentiating between an R and an N. So you might hear rice or lice, right? I want
Right.
lice, not I want some rice.
That's
Or
true.
they also have in different provinces, there's some N and R confusion, I would say. So there is another thing I would recommend. You said five, you want five, right? I
Right.
would suggest mirroring someone who you really like. Mirroring, okay? It's
Right.
finding someone who you think speaks well and try to mirror what they're saying. So going up, it's also called shadowing. That's also another way. So if you hear, so the next tip, and I'm going to bring them back together, is listening. And it's not listening for empathy, for instance. I'm talking about listening so you can hear those little micro distinctions, those little differentiations. It's like, wow, that sounded a little different. I tell my people that I coach and teach, my job is to teach you to hear the differences so that you don't need me. Like I want you not to need me because I want you to say, oh, if a Chinese speaker would maybe replace an S for a TH, I want
Right.
to go with you instead of with you. Okay. The next time they say that S for the TH, I want them to say, oh, I said the S, but don't worry about it. And that's where I say, be easy on yourself, accept it. And next time, try the TH. I want to go with you. So, okay, so we talked about mirroring and shadowing, which is kind of the same, listening, intonation over pronunciation. Let me see, what would be my other big tips? Oh, pick a few sounds, consonants and vowels. Here's a great one. My Moldovan Russian friend, he will call me Linda, Linda,
Right.
because the I sounds like this long E sound, Linda. And I'm like, oh, Dinu, it's Linda,
Linda.
Linda,
Linda.
not Linda, Linda,
Lin oh, Linda. Oh, Linda.
Linda,
Linda.
right?
Right.
And so we use the example of sheep versus ship. So a lot of different languages. So I'm trying to, not just say Mandarin or Indian or Russian. Okay, a lot of languages have a problem with that I, that a soft, like that softer I or that hard I. It's a tense, we call them tense vowels. So the sheep, right? Or ship. Well, a ship is on the water, a sheep is grazing on the grass, and people eat them or they use them for wool,
Right.
right? So they're very different things. So I also think that the last thing I'd like to say is if you're having problems with a word and it really isn't coming to you and it's difficult, try to find a different word. For instance, I had a student one time when coronavirus started, and he couldn't say
Right.
coronavirus, and it was before we started calling it COVID. But I knew he loved video games and he could say video. So what did we do? We said, say COVID. He said COVID. So he couldn't say coronavirus, but he said
Right.
COVID. So look for an alternate word, like a synonym, something that
Ah,
is the same thing. But if you're having trouble with a word, especially in a presentation, for instance, if it's at work or what, look for an alternate word. And I think there'll be more. I could talk forever. I'm sorry, CiCi, but I know you have some more questions for me. Did that help?
oh, this is beautiful to hear,
Okay.
and we feel that you the energies, the passion behind of it, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that throughout those years that there must be fun stories or special moments or unique students that you remember.
Yes.
Would you like
Okay.
to share a little with us?
Would. There was a young Chinese man who was at Columbia Graduate School. And Columbia, for those of you who don't know it, is a very, very exclusive university in New York City. And I met him, and then he went back to China for the summer, and we kind of lost touch. A few years after he graduated, he was in a mergers and acquisitions job in the financial sector.
Right,
Called me up and said, Linda, I need help because I'm doing these stand-up meetings and I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I don't think people understand me. I need help. So we did some one-on-one lessons and he would write to me and say, Linda, people are commenting how much better I sound, how much clearer I am. And he was one of those people who would drop the S on a plural word, which is a common East Asian, uh, I don't want to call it a problem because it's not really a problem. It's just a East Asian,
habit,
yeah,
habit.
it's a
It's a habit.
characteristic,
It's a habit.
characteristic. Okay. Um,
Right,
so he would say, Linda, I'm working at X company. It's not really X company, but X company for 6 months now, 6 months now. And I'm like, Marvin, you have to say months, months, months. You have to make it a plural. And unfortunately, that THS is very difficult to say. So
right,
we actually completely made up a word. And if your followers are following me, I don't have my whiteboard here, but I don't know if you can type this in the chat, but we came up with the word months, MUNCE, months, months. It sounds so close to months, but it
right,
doesn't have that TH that's it has our tongue, coming out of our mouth and being pulled back. And it's such a complicated, but that sound to produce, but that's where my speech language pathology helps. So I don't treat people like they have a disorder because they don't. They have an accent. And I don't try to reduce someone's accent, but I try to teach them a little bit of the American accent. Does that make sense?
Oh, this is perfectly makes sense.
Okay.
This is beautiful. And now that's Linda, we have a few questions actually from the listeners,
Great.
and then I really love to pass on this message. Um, so the first one that's what are your thoughts about chasing the American dreams? And then you was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And what does the American dreams mean to you?
Yeah. So the American dream, I can relate to it based on my grandfather. My grandfather came from Italy and he came over to America when he was 8 or 9 for opportunities in America. And he did. He created a wonderful life for himself. I was born into being a Native American, not Native American. That is the wrong word to use. Native American is an actually the Indian population, the American Indian population. So I was an American, born as an American citizen. And so I didn't have to chase the dream, but I did in some ways. Like my parents both graduated only from high school. My sister and I were the first generation to go to college, right? So I had to go further. Then we went for our master's degree. And then, so I am chasing the dream of being all that I can be. I think that's the best way I can say it, coming as a person who was born in America. So I don't have some of the challenges, but I challenge myself to be a special person.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
And so that's why that's this inner desire to create it, the successful Linda today. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I feel better now at my age than I did 20 years ago and or 30 years ago. Even though I could say the two most significant things other than marriage and children for me was my master's degree in my
Right.
40s, because I was in graduate school when everybody else was 22 and
Exactly.
I had to go and I was like their mother. And
Right.
and getting a pilot's license and actually having to land a plane in a solo flight flying into a storm one time. And I was the last plane that they were going to allow to land there because there was a storm coming. And it was so scary, but I had to land. So I had to pull everything, all of that strength, inner strength, up and say, okay, Linda, you have to land the plane because the only other option is crashing the plane, and that's not an option. And sometimes if you are coming in for a landing and you don't feel like you're doing it right, you can go around. But if I went around, I'd be heading directly into the storm. So when the tower, the air traffic controller said, called out my tail numbers on the plane, said you are the last one landing, right? I had to like set my feet down, think of everything, bring all the I was in the plane by myself. I did not have my supervisor because I was training specifically on solo flights. And I had to think of everything I had to do to make sure I landed that flight. So that was a pretty tense moment for me and something else that I did because I had to do it. So
And then how many times have you been flying since?
oh,
Yeah.
yes. So once I got my pilot's license, that is good forever. Now, I
Right.
live in the mountains now. That I was taking my pilot's license in Florida, where everything's really flat. Okay. And
Right.
it's really easy because you could pick out emergency landings all over the place. I don't fly much now, and when I fly, even though I'm allowed to fly, I just have to get checked out by a supervisor, to just sign off and say, yes, she can do X amount of takeoffs and landing. She's safe to fly. I now, at my age, I only fly on my birthday with a training specialist as well, because I want to have the fun of doing it. So I don't fly regularly now, but it's an accomplishment that really has changed my life.
That's beautiful. And then even for just imagine that on the beautiful blue sky, how many female pilots out there, right? It's so rare.
Yes, when I get off a plane as I'm traveling in, somewhere, if I see a female pilot, I'm like, I got my pilot's license. Now
Sometimes you can't.
I only fly small planes, but still I get excited because I'm like,
Right.
wow, there are more and more female pilots, just like there are more and more female executives, etc. in America. And I think that's part of the American dream as well.
That's beautiful. Um, and so Linda, then you have been in the language coaching space for more than 26 years, right? And if we say that's reflecting last year, right, year of 2024, that's what has been the thing that's blocked you last year the most? And
Yeah.
what is the thing that's still hard for you to break through? And sometimes that's sometimes we forgot, then we have to remind us in a painful lesson. So what's your perspective?
So I did have a pivot in 2024. So that's actually a great question, Cece. Thank you for asking that. The pivot was I used to do only one-on-one coaching, and I decided I wanted to create a course, and a course that was less expensive, than my one-on-one coaching and could reach more people. And I wrote a course, actually I wrote two or three, and the hardest part was pivoting and launching those courses, but they're hybrid courses. Remember I said before, you have to have feedback. So a lot of my courses are self-paced, but they have access to me for feedback all the time. It is not always direct, like one-on-one, like you and I are speaking. Sometimes they send me a message, I send them a message back. You're doing this great, you need work on this, whatever, but there's always feedback. So I had to, when I created the course, I had to create it with an automatic feedback loop that someone could use. I didn't want someone just practicing on their own. So I have like monthly drop-in lessons. So I just sit on my computer literally, and I have office hours, just as if you were at university, for instance, right? And you would drop in and see a professor, and anybody could drop in and ask me a question. Or they have these videos they can send me, and then I send them an answer within 24 to 48 hours. So I think that was a big thing for me in 2024. I decided to back away from one-on-one coaching only. I still reserve 5 spots for executives that I can do one-on-one coaching for, but my goal is to reach more people so I get my vision out there. And so I've created courses.
And Linda, that's recently I've been hearing that, uh a couple of friends of mine, from a different professional field. And then they, of course, they also have a bigger heart. They love to contribute and they love to serve the communities, right? But then they all seem to have the similar question, which is, um, so how do you define or how do you identify a deeper, a meaningful way to serve the community that you wanted to serve? What is your perspective?
That also is a great question, Cece. Um I send out weekly newsletters, but they're videos on a different topic. They're free. I have my YouTube channel is growing. I don't think it's as big as yours, but where anybody could click on a video or like a video and see me teaching. So I try to give value in any way I can that is free. And then if someone decides they want to join a course, that's what they can do. But for instance, I do a LinkedIn Live event every third Thursday of the month. And just 2 days ago, I did one on idioms and idiomatic expressions, which are figurative language, and they're hard for non-native English speakers to translate because it's not what it seems. It's not literal. So if I say, she climbed the ladder. You might think someone's on a ladder and climbing up, right? But
Right.
if you talk about that in a corporate setting, like CiCi is so good at what she's doing, she is climbing the ladder at work. That means she's getting promoted, she's getting recognized. So those
Thank you.
yes. Um, So the phrases that we use, and every language has their own idiomatic expressions, but the phrases we use. So I did an hour-long LinkedIn Live learning on idiomatic expressions, and we got tremendous feedback. So every third Thursday, I have this new topic that we talk about. And so I try to give value and share whatever I can. That is how I do it. So it's not requiring someone to pay me. It's YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all the social media platforms, and that's where people can grab value without having to pay.
Linda, so say that's in the scenario of transforming the communication communication clarities, right? So say that if we have like a listener, say for example, from a maybe from Malaysia, right? And then they really wanted to have like this excellent communication skills, right? How long does it take for you to transform him from here to there?
Okay, so when you talk about learning intonation,
Right,
that only then takes a few weeks. If your English is pretty good. I don't teach basic grammar, etc. Okay. A lot of people learn English from non-native speakers, right? So
right,
they learn it with the accent of their first language. So I think you'd have to have a good basis of vocabulary and grammar. But then if you learn the intonation pattern, honestly, you will be better understood within just a few weeks. Seriously, no joke. And I say that with a lot of people's experience behind me, and oh my gosh, and but they have to practice. Like in anything, I had to practice. Remember I told you I had to take off
right,
at 21 times that
right,
one day with so you have to practice, but you could practice only 10 or 15 minutes a day. And if you have opportunities to speak in English to an English speaker, that actually would help also. But if you're, say, a Malaysian person who has no English speakers to speak with, okay, there's a lot of speech coaches that will recommend movies. I don't necessarily recommend movies. I recommend TED Talks, and I'll tell you why. The movies, I know we're starting to run out of time, but movies, they're dramatic and oh my gosh, and they don't speak in a natural business kind of tone, right?
right,
Conversational
right,
tone. Everything is acted to the, we call it the nth degree, which is like emotional. If you're listening to a TED Talk, mostly you will hear that pattern of intonation. As soon as you remember that optimum pitch, and again, you find that optimum pitch by saying, somewhere in there is your optimum pitch. CiCi, your optimum pitch is different than mine. Okay, so everybody has a different optimum pitch. And then you go up and you walk down a set of stairs. Remember, I love my new job. And I'm actually using my head, my body, my hands to show you, but I love my new job, just so that people will remember that. Once they start watching like American English TED Talks, they will hear that pattern of speech, and coming down at the end of a sentence is so important for confidence, to sound confident, and not your confidence, to sound like you're a confident speaker. So if you end on a downward pitch, I can't believe I didn't say this earlier, but if you end on a downward pitch, you will sound like a more confident speaker. That's transformational. If you go up at the end, you sound not sure, unclear. So bring that pitch down at the end of a sentence. And yes, even on WH questions. If you're asking a question to somebody, people think you have to go up at the end of a sentence. That is not true. If you're asking a yes or no question, and I can divide it really quickly for you. If you're asking a yes or no question, you can have a pitch rise like, Did you enjoy going to the beach? Yes, I did. Oh, it's a yes or no, right? But if you have a WH question, a who, what, where, when, why, end on a downward pitch. So, what time is your podcast? You hear that? It's a
Right.
question, but I didn't go up at the end. What time is your podcast, CiCi? Now, people don't realize that, but that sounds confident. And if I go, what time is your podcast, CiCi? It's like lack of confidence. It's like,
Right.
right. So people go down in pitch, even when you're taught, we were taught in grammar school to go up with a question mark. No, 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 only on yes or no questions. On WH questions, come down still. End on a downward pitch, you get that confidence.
Wonderful. And Linda, so Dr. Finn that recently interviewed Patrick Bet-David. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch that. And then he has asked a very profound question. And he said that everyone have a strategy to live in this world, right? So everyone is a company of one, and everyone is a CEO of you. And so how do you live, right? So everyone takes it differently in life. And so what is your strategy, and how do you process this concept?
The concept of me being the CEO of my life,
Right.
right? I'm just clarifying the question. That is a wonderful question. Um, you can't be up every day. Like you can be physically up every day. Your emotions can't be always happy. But I pick things in my life that make me happy. Like going skiing today because it was a sunny day and it wasn't as bitter cold as it's been, and getting some exercise and getting air in my lungs. We chose to do that today. So every day I try to do something that makes me happy. And doctor, also at the end of the day, my husband and I reflect with gratitude. So we always say, what was the best part of your day, to each other, and we communicate that. And sometimes you've had like a crummy day, things have gone wrong, appointments have been late, or someone didn't show up for, an appointment, whatever. And it's like, and you burned the dinner, and, things are all going wrong. And then that makes you sit and think about, well, what was something, you know what? I had so much fun playing with my new puppy. Maybe it's something as simple as that. So it makes you think about, that's just something I practice. I practice gratitude at the end of every day. And I don't know, I start off with a goal of trying to do something that will fulfill me that day, but I also end the day with gratitude. Would that answer his question?
That's definitely. That's
Okay,
Thank you. And so maybe we just have like a few more questions and we wrap it up for you. Is that okay, Linda?
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. This is another question coming from one of our like 16 years old listener. And so he's curious that what is your perspective, right? On especially that's counterintuitively. So you see, what is your ultimate expression of perseverance through challenges? And also that what advice would you give to a 16 years old who's sharing, who's staring in the mirror and not liking what he sees,
Right.
but he still feel like he need to continue to push through for our cities.
Oh, that's hard because there are times in my life I looked in the mirror and didn't like what I saw either. And I can say we saw it with our son. So my heart goes out to you. I think look for the little joys in life. 16 is a hard age. It just is. I think our brains, I don't know this for a fact, but I've read that our brains aren't fully developed till like your early 20s, 25 or whatever. So a lot of people don't like what they see. And there's so much social pressure and social media that comes in and just kind of tears you down. Like, what does that person's body look like? And why do I have to conform? I have to tell this young man that my two sons who are 35 and 39, so they weren't 16 that long ago. They have both come to appreciate their differences. My 35-year-old, he does the craziest things. He is a very big snowboarder, but he also does like fire twirling, like on these batons, like because he found that fun. He plays the saxophone. He doesn't care what people think of him, but you can't tell a 16-year-old. It's hard for a 16-year-old to understand that. It's usually when you get a little older and get to look back. So I would suggest from like a parent's perspective, not a speech language pathologist, but a parent's perspective is just try to, accept those little differences because the differences are going to be the fun part of you when you're older and you're not competing with everybody. Like if you're not an athlete, like one of my sons was not an athlete but he was so smart and he got made fun of for being so smart. And so just as a parent, I can say, just keep looking for bright lights, keep finding podcasts like this that are motivating, follow CiCi, whatever it is, but look for something that makes your day happy, even if it's not what someone else would like. I'm just talking as a parent there, young man, and thank you for asking that question. I really can empathize with you because I know my boys struggled with that as well, and they're two fine young men now, and they accept their differences, and they're both very, very different. I think they're both ADHD and, you know, but they have their own like quirky music that they like or whatever it is. So kind of it's hard to say when you're 16, but try to accept as much of yourself as you can. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. That yeah, I totally resonated. And then in the meantime, Linda, that's uh, would you like to share a little bit that how can you build a healthy relationship with yourself?
Wow. Okay. So it's not being so hard on yourself. It's actually giving yourself, they call it the grace. Okay. That means permission, really. It's not, it doesn't have to be a religious word, but giving yourself permission to fail. And you have to. I mean, failure is just part of the path upwards. I'm sure you've seen the graphs where it's, you start to go up and you come down, then you go up a little more and you come down a little, and you go up a little more and you come down a little. So I would say just keep working at something that you and try different things to find out something that you really like to do, and maybe that turns into a passion. Because again, when I first started thinking about working with international students, I was like, wait, I'm used to working with deaf and hard of hearing kids. What do I know about I knew so much about it, and now it's my complete comfort zone. So I think you just the tenacity again. When I was landing that plane in the storm, I had a choice. And I didn't real actually I didn't have a choice. I had to land the plane, right? And the conditions were horrible. And I bounced that plane a little, on my landing, but I landed safely. So you all of a sudden come up with this like power within you that you're faced with, oh my gosh, or what am I going to do? And like getting worried, or I have to put all my training into perspective. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I hope it did.
It definitely resonated with me. And Linda, so a lot of people wanted to master that's the work that they like, right? However, it is really difficult to figure out who you are and what you really wanted to do. And it seemed that you have figured out that um, quickly in life, right? And then what advice that would you give for those still in the search?
Keep searching for what you like. And because you complimented me by saying I found it quickly, but I didn't. I knew I had a heart for working with people, CiCi, but yeah, I worked in the insurance field for 12 years, and I was working with claims and arguing with attorneys all the time. And I just hated what I did. And I was like, you know what? Now's the time to go back for my degree. And that's what really, because I was working and I didn't like it. And I was like, I don't want to argue every day with attorneys on settling injury cases, right?
Yeah. Right.
I did that for 12 years and it was like, oh my gosh, this is just, it didn't make me want to go to work. I get up now and I love coming to work. And even if it's creating a new video or, so my passion, was diverted. And I actually didn't even know how much I would love it until I was doing it. So just keep looking for what sparks a little light in you, whatever that might be. And for you, it's doing this podcast and being just so warm and friendly. And it's wonderful. I mean, I just keep looking for fun things. We are adventurers. We identify as adventurers. I can tell you that I love to be competitive, but I'm not really great in any sport I do. So I play golf, I play pickleball, we ride bikes, we do all that. And you know what? I'm not great at any of them, but at my age, it gets easier to accept that. But I keep trying and I keep trying to do what's fun. So find something or someone that you connect with that you have fun doing things with. I think fun's a big part of enjoying your life and finding where your passion lies.
What is that a triggering moment for you that made you decided to say, okay, enough for the insurance, and now I'm pivot over to,
Um,
another space?
yeah, so it was I was thinking about it for a while. My husband went to law school in the evening at Temple University in near Philadelphia. And he went and got his advanced degree. And I thought, he went and did it. I can go do that.
Right,
So that was like, I don't want to fight with lawyers anymore. And it's
right.
that's not the kind of work he does. But anyhow, I was just like, I love learning. And so I loved going back to school. And I just had this real passion for deaf and hard of hearing for some personal reasons. And I just wanted to help them be able to communicate and speak. I know a little bit of sign language, not fluent in sign language. So I only speak one language, American English. But I think it was just like, I don't want to just get a paycheck every day. I want to do something that, and at that point, when he finished law school and went into the law, I had some opportunity to take some time off of work and go into and study. But I actually worked during my graduate school as well. You're going to laugh at what I did, but I worked for the residence hall people and worked with off-campus fraternities that were having parties that were too loud and the neighbors were complaining. So they would send me in, and this helped me pay my tuition. So I even did something through graduate school. They would send me in like the mom, because I was in my 40s and these kids were, 20 years old. And I would sit in these dark, dingy houses and say, guys, you have to be more respectful of your neighbors. And I got paid to do that. I got paid to be a liaison between the community and the rowdy, drunken school students. So you look for opportunities, and that opportunity came up. I took advantage of it because I didn't need any school loans. And yeah, I worked my way through graduate school as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'll give you a round of applause for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, CiCi. I enjoyed your questions, your
Yes.
your thoughtful listeners. Oh my gosh, my heart goes out to the 16-year-old because I remember my son getting into a fight in the hockey locker room at 16, and somebody threw his equipment in the garbage and they got into a fist fight, and oh, those years are so hard. Just try to breathe. And I'm sorry. I feel so much for that question for him. Just look for opportunities to do something fun. Maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's something different than the mainstream.
I'm sure he will take your advice and implement. And so the last question is, Linda, any recommendations for books?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to actually move my screen a little because of my background. It will be hard to show. Oh,
Right.
no, it is.
We can see it. Yep.
Wow.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
I use these. Whoa, this one.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right. There we go. There we go.
Speak business
Yeah,
English
perfect.
like an American. Okay. They have them. This one I have here is for Russian speakers. See that?
Right.
Okay. Actually, let me just tilt this a little bit. That's better. Okay.
It's a
So
bit,
this
yeah,
one, yeah, speak English, business English like an American. And this one is for native Russian speakers. And they're a series by this woman named Amy Gillette. And she's very good. I have another one here for Chinese speakers. And they're just some
yeah,
really fun. It's actually fun. So I use them in my teachings.
right.
There's like cartoons in here and like what if you have to do when you call in sick to work, and it's just really they're fun
Fun.
little anecdotes. And so
Right.
I think I mean I have so many pronunciation books, intonation books, etc. Oh, let me get back to my face. I'm sorry.
Welcome back.
But thank you. But Speak English, Business English Like an American by Amy Gillette. And she has a series of them. I'm not sure of all the languages she covers, but I think that's a fun place to start if you can find that book.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Linda, that's any final thoughts that on your mind or your heart that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me, CiCi. Every question was so thoughtful and well thought out. And I hope that my points resonated with some people. So think of intonation first, learn to listen, and again, not listening necessarily for empathy and such, which is always a great listening skill, but listening to the different little nuances, the changes, mirroring or shadowing. Pick a few sounds that are difficult and learn them. Don't worry about all your pronunciation. If someone tells you pronunciation is the way to change, no, 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 no. Intonation, I promise you, based on that study, the German baby study, it really does have a lot to back my thesis up and my approach. So intonation first, then we build a little bit of pronunciation, and then we talk on top of that, we do a little bit of fluency, what's natural sounding speech. And yes, and if you want to find my website, it's beunderstood.us. US, not .com, beunderstood.us. And you could just sign up for the free weekly newsletter. I mean, we don't push programs. We really don't. I just want to help people communicate.
Amazing. Thank you, Linda. And so, as we wrap up our insightful conversations, I represent all of our listeners and wanted to say big thank you to Linda for sharing in your incredible journey and valuable insights with us today, and in your tips on mastering intonation and pronunciation and celebrating your accent and breaking language barriers that have been truly inspiring. And we appreciate your passion for helping others become confident and eloquent communicators. It's been an absolute blessing for the world. And it's been an absolute pleasure have you on the show with us. And your heroic energies enlightening our show and brightening our hearts.
Well, thank you so much for having me, CiCi. I appreciate you as well. Truly heartfelt appreciation for having me. Thank you so much for letting me share my story and hopefully giving some people some good tips and inspiration as well.
100%, 100%. And so don't forget that communication is a journey, right? And with the right guidance, we can all improve and excel. And stay tuned and for more episodes where we will continue to explore other successful professionals, their personal growth and development. And Linda, again, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, CiCi. I'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon. Until next time, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye.